Good evening and welcome to this edition of This Week in 60 Minutes. I am Juan Edghill Jr. and I do want to say a special welcome to those that are joining us tonight for the very first time. Also to you, our faithful viewers who have been with us over the past few months. You know, just to get right into the discussion, as we would have said last week, our upcoming elections is very, very important. And the vote that you will cast at the next election, you know, it must be one based on basically three things. Number one, the track record of that political party. Number two, the performance of that political party. Number three, competence. And the reason why we are urging Guyanese to move towards voting on these issues is because we know that voting based on race or voting based on generational history will not do what we have to do in this country. Basically, we will not accomplish what we have set out for this country. Tonight's topic is basically understanding the critical choice that lies ahead for us Guyanese. Because our choice at the next election will basically determine our future. Not only our future, but the future of our children and their children as well. So I do want once again this week to urge that you as a Guyanese citizen to really reflect on your vote come March 2nd, 2020. Think about the issues. Think about what you want going ahead. Do you want a government in place that is democratic, a government that will look after you, a government that has a policy in place for you and your children? Or do you want a government that basically will lie, a government that will squander, a government that does not understand how to govern a country? So that is just something that for you to ponder upon, and as we get closer and closer to these elections, we do have to remember that track record is very, very important. We did highlight the track record of the PPPC and the many, many accomplishments that they had over their years being in office, as well as the performance, the debt that was reduced, the many sectors that were boosted and revitalized as a result of the PPPC, and of course the leaders and the different people that they had placed in positions to help the generation and the Guyanese people. So we are just 26 days away from these elections, which are on March 2nd, 2020. And I do also want to urge Guyanese to check the official list of electors. It's now made public. It's also on our Facebook page, This Week in 60 Minutes. So please go out there and check for your name. There are two ways that you can do so. You can either input your national identification card, you can put that number in, or you can as well put in your name, that is your last name, middle name, and first name, as well as your date of birth. And you will see all of the information as well as to verify and to confirm that you are on the official list of electors. It's very, very important that you do this. I can't stress enough. Also, you'll be able to see the division where you are registered, and this is very important, so you'll be able to know where is it you have to go and vote in these next elections. So this evening, I have with me a very distinguished gentleman. He is a past president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Private Sector Commission. He's a chartered accountant, and I would say a very, very professional individual, one of the national candidates for the PPPC for these elections in 2020. Good evening, Mr. Indar. How are you?
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Nice
we're happy to have you here. So you've been around the country and you've been speaking at a lot of public meetings. What has been the general vibe of the people at these public meetings and so on? Are they ready for the PPPC to return to office? Just before we go along with our program.
Well, certainly the numbers are encouraging.
Yeah.
When you go out and you meet people, everybody have genuine concerns about their future.
Yes, of course.
And they come out to hear the message, and they come out freely. There's no party, there's no free food. It's not like that. It's just, you know, there's the message,
Yes.
a positive message that we're sharing.
Yeah.
And people come out. People come out and they listen to us and they interact. And it's a good feeling to see sometimes children, youths, a lot of youths, and then there are, you know, people from all walks of life show up to our meetings. So I think it's a good sign. It's a very good sign.
Okay.
Right?
Well, just to move on with some developments from the Guyana Elections Commission. The ballot papers that were printed in Canada in preparation for polling day will arrive in Guyana on Thursday. That is tomorrow. So the ballot papers will officially arrive, and I would say that the government and opposition nominated commissioners, they were in Canada at that time to supervise and to look on as this was being done. So just to allow our Guyanese people to know what's going on there. Officially, GCAM has also said that there are now 2,352 polling stations that they have confirmed. Of these, there are 131 private residences, mostly located in Region 4 along the east coast of Demerara. As well, we have been speaking a lot about the foreign observers and the importance that they will play in these elections. Just to tell you that the EU has already deployed a mission here in Guyana. I think I saw about 14 people have already been dispatched throughout the regions of Guyana. So the observers are already playing a very, very important role in these elections. They're already on the ground. And we were discussing, Mr. Indar, and we said that the Private Sector Commission has a local mission here. They have been approved to observe these elections, as well as AmCham and the Private Sector Commission, Georgetown Chamber of Commerce as well.
Those are already approved local observers, but to expand a little from the EU mission, there's also the International Republican Institute, the IRI, that is in Guyana. They also have an attaché from India, as well as from Ghana, and they have Mr. Kingsley out of Canada. Right. So we also have those, which creates an extra layer of watchful eyes.
Yes, which I think is very important for us, because observers, they lend to the importance of us having free and fair elections, but also elections that are free from fear.
True.
So we have these observers here who are looking on, and Guyanese, we remember the history. We don't have to go into it now, but we know the history of elections and the importance of every Guyanese having the opportunity to cast their ballot and ensuring that vote is counted when all is said and done. So the importance of these observers cannot be overstated.
Oh, that is true. But I mean, you say free from fear, and that is, I mean, there's a very, very carefully crafted statement. But I think that we want an election in Guyana that is, where there's no violence. There's no post-election violence. I mean, we are a country in the 21st century, and we have to. We are a new oil-producing nation, so we have to behave in a mature way. Our citizen, and our leaders have to make sure that we have a stable society to coexist in.
Yes, I think that's very, very important, Deodat. Just to move on, we are now seeing an increase in the use of inflammatory language, and the most recent was that by Ms. Tabitha Sarabo Haley and Clayton Haley. Mr. Clayton Haley, in that objectionable video, and just quoting one of the things that he said, I quote, "And in order to keep them intact, they throw a lot of branding on Afro-Guyanese when you hear a lot about thugs. Yeah, hooligans and this. And then at the bottom house meetings, they drive fear in them to telling them that they can come and beat them up and they can this, and if you know all sorts of things going to happen if they go in power and these kind of things. So what they do indirectly, they would drive fear in their own supporters as it relates to Afro-Guyanese," unquote. Now, Deodat, our country has moved a lot, and I think that we are going towards a place where all Guyanese will feel included in our mission and in our goals for Guyana. Now, the People's Progressive Party Civic has been working very hard to ensure that it advances the interests of all Guyanese. And I think that its efforts are mainly to ensure that the party is one that is nationally recognized as a party that looks like the entire country and is made up of the entire country. And this is why the PPPC has put together a list of candidates that is so diverse, that is so mixed, that its make-up, it looks like regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It has farmers, it has accountants, it has lawyers, it has seamstresses, it has nurses, it has people that are Guyanese, and not just people who are professionals, but people who can get down in the dirt too. People who are mechanics, people who have this technical knowledge and expertise. So you know, when I see things being said like this, and yes, we have a lot of Afro-Guyanese on the list of candidates as well. So, you know, as Guyanese, we have to really pay attention to these statements, and we really have to move ahead and move past these things, because the PPPC is really trying in its efforts to move away and to really foster a Guyana that looks like all of Guyana, that will advance the interests of all Guyanese.
Yeah, so what I would say to this is that, you know,
yeah,
polarization just can't be your only strategy. I mean, we have to look towards issues that will better the lives of Guyanese. How is it that we're going to put monies in the pockets of Guyanese?
Yes.
How is it we're going to stop taking monies out of the pockets of Guyanese that was currently being done in terms of the number of taxes, right?
Yes.
So polarization, I mean, that strategy is not effective. Put it this way. Between the ages of 18 to 37, there were about 283,000 Guyanese that rank between that age. It means to say that there's a new generation, and some of them, most of them, are not too concerned about that.
No, really not.
It's really not an effective strategy. For those who are peddling it and think it will bring dividends, I think that that will be a disappointment. So, you know, the big tent approach, everybody's welcome. We are one people, we are one nation, and we have to behave in that manner. We got to make sure that we all see each other as equals. We got to make sure that we treat each other as equals too.
Yeah, so I would also like at this point, as I would have done last week, to call on the Ethnic Relations Commission to really fulfill its mandate to continue functioning as it is mandated to do so under Articles 212 of the Constitution. And, you know, I would also like to urge them to be, you know, a bit quicker in the way that it deals with matters, because we know how, you know, regressive these kind of statements can be to our development that we want Guyana to go through and undertake. So we really need the ERC to ramp up its effort in its monitoring and in its dealing with these matters, because, you know, we know that previously the race card was used by a certain political party, and it is not the PPPC. So we really need we urge the ERC to continue to ensure that it monitors and to act and function like it is mandated to do, I would say. So now, as we get into some local developments that have been undertaken in our country, and there are a lot of things that are occurring here in Guyana, many things that have occurred over the past few years, but the most recent Deodat, I saw that there were 326 workers that were fired. Do we want to touch a little bit on what's happening here?
You know, every time over the past couple of years, and this is not a political statement, but it's a reality.
Yes.
Every time you look over the past 4.5 years under this government, it's a lot of job losses.
Yes.
And it started with Guy Suku. It started when the AP-NUAFC government decided to put 7,500 people from having a meal to not having a meal. They put them out of work. And then that moved into taxation measures that caused a lot of miners to go out of business. It went into measures that created some kind of disincentive for construction sector where all of the equipment are taxed, all heavy machinery. Forestry lost a whole lot of jobs in the thousands. You know, we also saw that the Cameroonian 1,972 of them were fired. You know, then, you know, in the rice industry, all of those taxes on herbicide, pesticide, and fertilizer, and then the equipment, the harvesting equipment and preparation equipment, all of that, VAT went on those things, and they created unemployment. The total sum effect of it is about 30,000 as a conservative figure. Now you're seeing 326 persons more lost their work. And then there were some laws that some of our people lost their work in the fishing industry too when they closed our plant up in Houston there. So it is just compounding the problem of employment. And if people don't have money to spend, it means that retail shops are not going to do businesses. Consumption will be in decline. Import will be in decline. Everything is in decline. So if you have joblessness stuck in the land, it's not good for economic development. We have to put back jobs in the economy. And I believe that our manifesto from the PPP side is to create 50,000 jobs in the first 5 years.
Yes.
And we are committed to do that. That is not an airy-fairy thing. That is a doable figure.
I hope that's a conservative figure too.
It is a conservative figure, and it's a doable figure.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
And the country can hold our feet to the fire for that. once we are given the opportunity to serve come March 2nd, to serve the people of Guyana, I believe that we will prove our mettle.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Deodat, because we've also seen the situation with the sugar workers and the way that in which that the government would have treated our sugar workers, who were about 7,000 that were laid off since 2015, and
so
the situation there.
Let me say something on that. Now, the thing is, if a citizen break the law, if you drive too fast and you get a speeding ticket, you got to show up and you got to remedy that situation. If you break any law, you're punished for it, you're taken to court, you're prosecuted for it. Here is the government of the country, and there's a severance pay act.
Yes.
There's the people of Wales supposed to be paid their severance. In Wales right now is depression. Wales have depression.
Yes.
The children are not going to school in Wales. This unemployment is, pervasive in Wales. Not only Wales, and then more and up in Berbice too, Kanji straight up to Skeldon. And if, Guyanese, we can just, not say something. We can't wait till the problem is our problem at our door, then we say something. We have to speak out for those who are being mistreated. And the Wales sugar workers are being mistreated. They were supposed to be paid their severance by this government long now.
Yes.
Long now. I mean, that is just the law of the land. Right? So,
Yeah,
it's a bit disappointing. It's disappointing that the government can treat its own citizens in such a manner.
Yes, but the PPPC also has a plan for sugar workers.
The General Secretary has said over and over again.
Yes.
And the presidential candidate has said over and over, Dr. Irfan, that we're going to open those sugar estates.
Excellent.
And we're going to make sure people are re-employed. Those who don't want to go back into the estates and they want to go into other areas, they'll be trained and jobs will be found for them. We're going to make sure we put what we call focused effort into putting people back to work, because that is what moves an economy. Apart from the economic side of it, is the social side of it.
Yes,
when people are able to provide for their families, when a husband is able to provide for his family, it creates that strong social unit at home.
Yes.
When you see money's not coming in, every sort of social ills start to come into the household, start breaking up our households one by one and fracture the society.
But this government did not even carry out a socio-economic impact assessment before closing these. And in fact, they went against their own findings from the Commission of Inquiry.
Let's discuss that, because I did extensive work on Gaisuku before the closure.
Sure.
At that time, I was at the Private Sector Commission. I was tasked with analysis of Gaisuku. Sure. Gaisuku never had no $60 billion in debt.
Okay, so that was a lie. That was a lie.
Gaisuku had $29.9 billion in debt. And that debt had 3 tranches. Mm-hmm. One were going to mature in 2023, and 2 of the bigger ones, the tranches, were going to mature in 2027.
Okay.
That is at the end of 2017, 10 years out. It's like a bank loan.
Yes.
Right? The annual payment for all of those loans was about $5 billion and $48 million that goes to the income statement as repayment of loan on the balance sheet. So when they said they had $60 billion in debt, that was post-retirement benefit. I think it was about $32 billion in post-retirement benefit. And that is an obligation. As people retire, then is when that kicks in. And the other one was deferred taxation. You can't cut a check and go and say I'm paying deferred taxation anyway. Deferred taxation, it's a liability that's recorded on the books of the company, but it's not an interest-bearing debt. And that is the problem and they misled the country and closed Gaisuku, right? Yes. Every sugar estate, at the estate level, every one of them were making a contribution to Gaisuku. They were not making losses. It's only when you add in the overheads for Gaisuku and all of the overheads costs, then is when Gaisuku shows up with a loss.
Yes.
Gaisuku is making a loss and continue to make a loss. But if you have 7 estates and you cut out 4 of them and left 3, it means that if 7 estates used to work to pay off the debt and run the institution, and you cut off 4, then you have 3. It means that this 3 can't provide for the overheads cost. So sooner or later, the 3 is going to go too.
Yeah. But I see the situation that's happening at the National Insurance Scheme too. They're now saying that they're having financial woes as a result of Gaisuku not functioning.
And that is the thing. You see, the economic tentacles of Gaisuku are long.
Yes.
They span and go into all different other spin-off industry. Deal with the neighborhood economy. So everywhere there is a estate to surround the economy. There's drainage businesses. There are the suppliers supply them. Then they have the small shops that the workers buy from. All of this, a village economy that's created there. When you shut it down, everything goes.
That's correct.
And that creates more unemployment, more hardship on people.
So basically, it's all interconnected then.
Yeah,
all
well,
these
economics
issues.
is 99.99% it's connected.
Yes.
Businesses are interconnected, and that, when you rip it out like that, like a hook in your mouth and you pull, it ruptures the economy, which is we call shock and awe management, you know?
Yes.
And that's what this government has done, shock and awe management. I'm sorry to say it,
So
but
they
that's what it's
basically
done.
didn't understand what was
Then
happening.
if you're going to do something that requires significant impact on an economy, you should have done a proper impact analysis.
Yes, which they didn't do.
The impact analysis were able to say to you that if I close this estate, this is the economic ramification, this is the social ramification, right?
Yes.
That wasn't done.
But I think that going back to the main point, though, is that their own commission of inquiry recommended non-closure, and they still went against what their own commission of inquiry said. So
Well,
I
I
think
will
that,
say
that's,
this
the,
to
that's
you.
the bottom line
Come March
there.
2nd, they will be judged by the people for those decisions.
Yes.
Right?
You know, also there have been a lot of losses in jobs in the construction sector. A lot of jobs lost there. What is the PPP planning to do with the building materials and you know, in the construction sector, people who want to get into?
Apart, it's not just the construction, but as you asked about the construction, let's talk about it, right? Construction, if you check the recent report coming out of the Bank of Guyana, you'll see construction on the rise. But what we have not done as a country, separate oil-related GDP from non-oil GDP.
Yeah.
So what is happening is that all of the subsea structures, all of the pipes and everything that we use offshore, it comes in at a value, and there's an exemption there. So it is the net effect is there.
Yes.
So and that is added to the sector.
Yes.
So it looks like it's growing. But with that, there's no we call trickle-down effect. There's no social formation with that kind of sector. So when you see construction grew, what grew? It's not private construction. It's not the PSIP program that government has. It is the oil and gas element that has come and masked in there and created a false sense that construction is growing. But construction is not growing. Construction is dim. Construction is dim because the government did not continue on a housing development plan program as the PPP did. So when you have a housing development program, you have the sand guys, you have everybody, all the carpenters, all the masonry, all the contractors, all the loom guys, people building the road, zinc, plumbers. It creates job. It's a machinery to create credit. That is one. It creates credit, but it also creates jobs. So PPP, we say we're going to make sure that we put at least we're gonna open back that housing program from the get-go and start building out.
But they're promising 50,000 house lots.
50,000 house lots. And with the 50,000 house lots, what you're gonna build 50,000 houses on there. People are gonna build a house, they're gonna get the credit, and they're gonna buy, and that creates that economic. What you're doing is creating economic activity, and by doing that, jobs are created, money is spent back into the sector.
I think also specifically they've said that they're going to remove the VAT on building materials.
Not that alone. There were about 200 VAT increase in either it's tax on items that never had tax. Our fees have gone up 200 plus. Right? I remember the Minister of Finance write 2 long page, must take 2 days to write in the newspaper attacking me about this thing. Right? But I will continue to tell the people of this country about 200 new taxes, and that is hardship measures, and it includes the VAT on building materials and so on. We're going to reverse them. In our manifesto, we say we're going to reverse them. But I want to say this to you, right? If you check the Bank of Guyana data, in 2014, the last full year the PPP were in power, if you check private consumption or your taxation revenue to private consumption, it was 22%. That means that if you had $500, 110 used to go back in taxes and fees to the government overall in the country. Now, it's 44%. So if you have $500, 220 goes back into the government hand. So $1,000 going to be $440 goes back into government hand. So you have less amount of money to spend. When you have less amount of money to spend, one is that it stifles consumption within the household. You have to eat less, you have to live less. That's why people's monies are running out, and they didn't understand why their money not taking them from one month to the next. And it's because of the issue that the monies are going back into taxes. Now let me explain what happens when that happens. When money goes into government hands, it takes longer for it to go back into the economy. Because it goes into the treasury, then they have to go to parliament to do appropriation. Then it goes when you start to do your procurement, you have mobilization payment, second mobilization payment, and the money dribbles back into the economy. But when it's in private hands, it moves quickly back and forth. So the velocity of money is slowed up every time you tax, you increase your taxes.
Well said, well said. Thanks for that explanation, Deodat. One, on the last point here, local developments. In our country, I've seen an increasing, occurrence of crime and blatant crimes in our country. I've seen that, there's an increase in gun violence related crimes, and persons are basically being robbed, mugged, and our government is still not really addressing this crime situation. They've continuously said in the past that Guyanese, we're the reason why we're being robbed and so on. We need to stop walking around the place with our cell phones. They've also failed to address many of the issues that are related to crime in our country. Not really taking a hands-on approach to answering why citizens are going through some of the highest level of crimes in our country. So this is just...
Crime, one, is a plague on society.
Yes, it is.
The level of crime as per population set that we have is way above. I mean, Trinidad is its own little mess. But Guyana, we can do about our crime. It's just a matter of having a proper crime plan, right? And we are putting a proper crime plan in place. We can, these guys talk about their crime exports, and so the amount of crime that happened in this one, jailbreak, I don't know what to say. But when these guys go out into the society, they start to go and they destroy lives. When they come to your house, you don't have money, you say you don't have money, they beat you. They treat your family.
Yes.
Listen, we have to make sure that we are serious about crime. Listen, last night I was in Parfait Harmony on the West Coast there. Every time a car is lost somewhere, they go and check in the Parfait Harmony, see if it's daddy back there. Because it created a cesspool of criminals.
Yes.
And, we, the police have to be armed, one, with the right kind of tools. They have to be serious, and they have to be given the support from the top. The support from the top empowers the police to enforce the law.
Great point.
Right? They have to be given the support from the top. So again, we have a brigadier that is going to be the next prime minister. Once the people give us a chance to serve them come March 2nd, and that he has a very good plan in consortium with the rest of the party, and I believe that that plan will curb this problem. This is a blight on our society, and we got to reduce it. Crime is like, crime operates similar like the poor. You cannot ever get rid of it, but you have to bring it down to an acceptable level. There's no acceptance of crime. Bring it down to a very low level, as low as possible. Nobody wants to, somebody to come and rob them of the hard-earned asset or the hard-earned earnings.
Yeah, so basically you have to have a very serious approach with how you're tackling crime, and not make criminals feel protected, and that's what the PPPC is promising. It's promising, to revitalize and to as well to ensure that technology plays a key role in how we address the crime situation in this country. So we do have in our manifesto a lot of the plans of how we intend to tackle crime on a hands-on basis.
So the thing is, the 911 call system, that have to be managed separately, independently from the police. If you can do that, and we can get that right, and we will get that right, to make sure that the 911 plan is managed separately, so that we can be able to tackle crime.
Yes. So viewers, much is at stake in these elections, the issues that we're highlighting here, and that is why we continuously urge everyone to come out and vote March 2nd, 2020. Don't stay at home, because much is at stake. Your future is at stake. And, we are highlighting why, you need to come out and vote solidly for the People's Progressive Party Civic in these elections, to ensure that all of these issues are addressed. So in addition to local developments, though, Deodat, on the international stage, we saw that a 28-page report from the Global Witness, that's the non-governmental watchdog, has been released, and it was titled, quote-unquote, Signed Away. Now, what that report would have exposed was basically 4 things. And, it said a lot, but it basically exposed 4 things. There was a rush to sign a renegotiated deal with ExxonMobil. there was the expert opinions that persons would have given to them, they were basically rejected and cast aside. So they got opinions and they got experts to tell them what they should have done, but they were rejected. Raffle Trotman, who is the Minister of Natural Resources, he was clearly compromised, evidenced by everything from first-class flight tickets and the limousine transportation to fine dining and pricey hotels. And this is where it gets really ridiculous, Deodat, is that Guyana will lose as much as $55 billion because of a poorly negotiated deal. So these are just 4 findings that we would have had. Now, page 4 of the report says that, in April 2016, U.S. oil giant Exxon had a problem. The company had recently found oil off the coast of Guyana, one of a series of finds that would make Guyana the world's newest oil hotspot. But Exxon's Guyana's license was old, shrinking, and would soon expire, putting in jeopardy the company's increasingly valuable asset. Exxon needed a new deal, and it aggressively pursued one. In early April 2016, the company opened negotiations in Texas by confronting 2 inexperienced Guyanese officials. Exxon also said that until it got the new deal, the company would stop developing its oil fields. So that's basically it. There was basically a rush to sign this new agreement there. Now, with regards to the rejection of the expert opinions, as we said, there were 2 expert opinions that were given to this government. On page 16 highlights the first one. On Friday, June 24th, prior to signing the deal, he sent the terms to an oil industry expert for a review. This is Raffle Trotman. Working quickly, the expert responded on Monday the 27th. In a brief, the expert told Trotman that Guyana needed far more information about the value of Stabroek and what a fair deal would be. So that's expert number 1 giving advice. And expert number 2, also on page 16, it said, around the same time, Trotman requested advice from a second oil expert. According to the expert, he also told Trotman that the government needed more information about the economics of Stabroek before signing, and even suggested where Guyana could get money to hire these advisors. Both sets of recommendations were apparently dismissed from what the Global Witness would have seen. So on June 27, 2016, only 1 business day after Trotman sent his request to the first expert, and the same day the expert replied, the minister signed Exxon's license. Could we discuss, some of these implications here, the loss that Guyana will endure, and so on? What are some of your opinions on what we're talking about?
First of all, you have to state the position first.
Yeah.
So the position that the People Progressive Party has been saying, the leadership of the party, is that the Exxon contract will not be renegotiated.
Yeah.
I believe that the General Secretary have repeatedly said that better contract administration will have to be done, because they are a frontier business that took a lot of risk, and they came to Guyana and they found oil, right? That being said, that does not preclude a representative of the people who was elected to deliver a good deal for the people, right? So put Exxon aside. Let's deal with the people that we elect in 2015
the people that dealt with the contract.
To go and get the best deal for the people of Guyana. So I live on the West Coast, and where I came up from extreme poverty. So across Vridenupa, the Stelling, there's what we call Plastic City.
Yes, I know Plastic City.
You saw it in the newspaper and so on, right? It's what we call
I visited there too.
squatting area,
Yeah,
right? Good. But I grew up in that area.
Okay.
Because our house was not far from there. But when we go a little more to Zilla, to the back of Zilla, to the riverside, there's more squatting, severe poverty.
Yeah.
If you go to Parika, close to the riverside, poverty. You go many places across this country, you find poverty. So here's a country that we have a lot of poverty. You finally you strike deal, you strike oil, and the minister goes and did not apply the relevant due diligence. Let me tell you what we or I would have done, or any sane person would have done to get a good deal. You saw, you just quote the figure 55 billion.
Yes.
Good. I would have said, let's take 10 million US or 20 million and go hire some guys from Goldman Sachs. A team of guys to go negotiate with Exxon to see what the best deal we can get. I would have go maybe to Culver House or McKinsey or one of those consultancy firms who
Yeah.
can able to negotiate on your behalf as a country. If we spend 20 million US paying that, we would save a whole lot of
Billions.
money, right,
Yes.
in getting a better deal.
Yeah.
Now, what that money can do, that is 55 billion Guyanese.
US.
US. If you convert that into Guyanese, it's around maybe 11 to 12 trillion.
11.5 trillion.
That is depending on what rate you use. If you use
Yes.
216, it's
216,
more.
yes,
If you use
yes.
220, is 12.1
Yes.
trillion, right?
Yes.
So it depends on what rate you use. But those kind of money is not limit money. Those kind of money will transform this country. That kind of money that can build 220 new Demerara Harbor Bridge.
Wow.
220 new Demerara Harbor Bridge. I saw an article in the Guyana Times written by Ravi Ram that put that money in perspective, what we could have done with it,
Yeah.
right? And we could have done a lot of stuff with it, a lot of things with it. But here is Minister Trotman, who did not work in the best interest of the country. But what he has done here is, I believe, is the future generation. He has stymied development for the country. Because the money would have gone into development for the country, infrastructural development, better schools, better harbor bridges, better ports, better facilities, better medical, more security systems in the country, more infrastructure in the country. All those things that money could have spent on. What are you going to have? You don't have that now. You don't have that now because they signed a bad deal. He signed a bad deal.
Yes.
The collective wisdom of government is in question here.
Yes.
Collective wisdom, because
Yes.
this is the biggest thing that we had since the Republic.
Indeed.
And you're saying that you're going to wait a day or 2 days more to get
Yes.
expert advice?
Yes, but he got expert advice and he still didn't. Yeah, by all apparent, from what we're reading here, he did not take the advice.
Well,
From all appearance.
you know, something that is even worse. But then I'm seeing that in Demerara Waves, that Moses Nagamutu is saying that they had to rush the deal because the people wanted to pull out. The license was not due to renew sometime in 2018.
Mhm.
So how can you rush to do something? Listen, due diligence, you can't, when you're negotiating, each person have to be given enough time to, this is a national issue.
Yes.
You can't rush to sign. This is not a contract to build a bathroom or, you know, it's a massive long-term
Yes.
contract, right? With a stability clause in it that you can't change anything to.
Yes.
Right? So that is the problem here. I'm saying that the patrimony, Mr. Trotman and his team, they have sold out the patrimony of Guyana
Yes, they have.
to the expense of the people of the country.
Yes. And not
Because
only you and me, but 2 generations to come.
3 generations up. You know, intergenerational equity is a principle that we live by, right? It's a UN convention principle, and it caters for 2, 3, 4, 5 generations after, right? And this is threatening that.
Yes.
It's threatening that generational wealth that can pass down. It's threatening it.
Yeah. So there were 4 recommendations, and we did speak about the first one. But Global Witness, the UK-based NGO, included that the first one is the Guyanese government should renegotiate Exxon's Stabroek oil license, and we did talk about having better contract administration
Yes.
under the People's Progressive Party Civic. But one thing that the PPP will also look into is the local content policy.
Yeah.
And what can the local content policy really do for us in this country?
Let's go there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that will be the answer to a lot of the ailments in the industry right now,
Yeah.
right? So what local content will do, remember, a lot of the money that is spent offshore is happening in private enterprise.
Yes.
So local content really is getting businesses to supply goods and services either to the operators, not one operator, all the operators across, and all the tier 1 contractors across.
Yes.
Whatever they need to operate out there, local content will give Guyanese business a fighting chance, especially if you put into the legislation forced consideration be given to Guyanese for any goods and services. So you have a chance to bid for the item. If you lost the bid for whatever reason, you up your game, you go back again into it.
Yes.
But it gives you a fighting chance. What is happening now is that you find foreigners are coming and mopping up most of the opportunities.
Yeah.
Because Guyanese, the first thing they ask you, do you have oil and gas experience? We don't have.
Yes.
I mean, but 2015 to now, a lot of local companies have amassed the kind of skills that is needed for offshore operation. We got labor providers, logistics providers, we got people in welding, we got people in the taxi service, we got people in a whole host of services. You know, I think the operators themselves, about 600 different businesses are doing business with them, right? So that means that we are amassing some level of critical mass to get our people ready, but much more need to be done. So local content legislation would be able to that private spend that that is happening offshore and through actually through the shores into the offshore industry. That private spend, Guyanese can get a part of it. So it will enrich Guyanese from that standpoint, and it will generate jobs there too, right? Because once you create a new business, you have a business run, you have to employ people, right?
So that's very important then for us to have this local content, because just for our viewers to understand, you know, they might be looking and saying, I have a taxi business at home, or you know, I supply gas, or I have a fleet of buses, and I want to get involved in all these things. What the local content policy really impact the lives of the ordinary Guyanese?
So let me explain how this process works, right? So what you have to do, you have to first get your business registered, you have to get your certifications, you have to make sure you register with there's a local content center for business.
Center for Local Business Development.
Yeah, CLDB. You go, you register your business there. That's the first step in the process. What happens there now is that you will get to see most of some of the opportunities that are out there. And then you can, you know, engage your companies, bid for them and whatnot, right? But that is the process and how you get here. You just don't show up at the door and expect to get business. It don't work like that. The industry don't operate like that. So you have to make sure you do that in that process. So if you have a taxi service, fine. Go say I have a taxi service, register your business, make sure that your taxis are well kept, they are service, they have maintenance record, make sure they have the right insurance to transport people, they have the right first aid systems in the back of the, so all of those things have to be a package that you have to make sure when you're delivering a service, you're delivering a service as required by the customer. And this is the oil and gas customers are a different kind. This industry operates with safety paramount, right? So that is why you have to gear your business towards that kind of setting. So it just don't work like, okay, you know, you have a taxi or you have some kind of business and you have to go through the process.
But it's critical to say though that having this local content policy in place is
actually,
very
policy
valuable.
Is good. Policy is good one, but you need legislation.
Legislation.
Policy, people can always say, well, you have a policy, I'm not required to follow your policy, but when you have a legislation and the PPP is committed to passing a good policy.
Because APNU has basically played around with it for the past couple of years. They've played around with it basically. What I'm saying is that when questioned about it, they've been hopping around the issue basically, and they have shown no consciousness or they haven't shown no effort in wanting to pass this local content policy even before everything would have happened.
The oil and gas industry needs architecture, a governance architecture. It's not there. Let me tell you, 4.5 years going to 5 years have passed. There's no Petroleum Commission legislation that is there. There's no local content legislation. I don't see any fiscal regime there. The regulatory bodies right now remain the one under the Petroleum and Exploration Act, which is the GGMC. They need new regulatory agencies. So they got the EPA, that is the only one that have legislation from long now. So no new legislation to govern the sector is there. So how we operating? Free for all? It cannot be free for all. There must be some kind of framework in which everybody is operating under.
Right? Which will obviously benefit the Guyanese people, and that's why we want to get this this into place.
Not just the Guyanese people. This is a mutual beneficial arrangement because if Guyanese are trained, Guyanese businesses do, obviously we're going to be cheaper. We're going to be cheaper, and it better for the operator, the tier 1 contractor to have Guyanese. One is that they get cheaper service, more reliable. If they have a downtime, the meantime to repair and get up, or your uptime will improve. All of those things happen. Because you don't have to go and get something from across the world, it's right here. If you have to repair something, you have to weld something, you have to get a person to go offshore, whatever you have to do, if it's available right in country, it's faster to get it out there. So it makes everything cheaper and more efficient.
Yeah.
Right?
The PPPC is promising to have that sovereign wealth fund in place as well. They're promising to ensure that some of the oil money is able to revitalize our other sectors that this current fallen government, they would have, basically depleted a lot of funds in these areas, our sugar industry, mining, fishing, all the others that we would have spoken about. So the oil wealth will not just be geared towards one particular sector, but we'll be using it across the board to ensure that our other sectors are also supported. But just to go through the other three recommendations.
So before you go move on,
sure.
The sovereign wealth fund is most critical to development.
Yes.
Right? So I didn't raise it because we might spend another episode.
No, that's why we just had to mention it. Yes.
The sovereign wealth fund have to be tested for its inviolability, meaning it's the ability for it to be repealed. They passed that after the no confidence motion on January 3rd. Mm-hmm. Although the general framework for a sovereign wealth fund is that the money goes into a separate fund and managed separately, that is there. That legislation have a lot of holes in it, and it needs to be fixed, right? Because you need a stabilization element for future generation, a savings element, and you need an element that will have to spend back into the economy to develop the economy, so that the country's economy and structure must be able to support oil and gas operation and other industries. So no sense you have the money stashed away and you have dilapidated buildings, schools and bridges and ports and so on.
That's correct.
It's better you put the money and build it up and then it generate back. And you keep generating all the time. So you put the money in what we call cash generating units or income generating units. You don't use it and go paint buildings and those kind of things. You use the money and put it to where you can have two things: capital formation and social formation. That's right? That's what the money should go into: the security of our lives and the development of our people.
Well, I do urge the Guyanese people to take a look at that, the oil and gas plans that the PPPC has in its manifesto. The excerpts are available. It's also on our Facebook page. So do take a look at it. Just to go to the other recommendation from Global Witness, it says that in the context of the climate emergency and given the revenues that Guyana could receive from the existing Stabroek oil finds, the Guyanese government should place a moratorium on any new drilling. The Guyanese government should investigate the process by which the Stabroek license was negotiated. The Guyanese government should adequately resource and ensure the independence of its anti-corruption agencies.
Now, before you move on from that, right?
Yeah.
Imagine, we did not take the export advice. We did not go to the international forum to help us negotiate. But since this article break, and it was in the U.S., in the New York Times, the Herald Sun, Yahoo News, and God knows where else. Our government, the APNU government, has found it very thoughtful to go to the UK and find a company called Clyde & Company to represent them, to deal with the ramification of this kind
of the Global Witness report.
Yeah, to deal with the global. So we didn't. So the question is, how did we find this firm? How did we procure them? Did it go through the procurement process between last week to now? Did we award? What was going on there? I mean, more and more questions in this horror story is coming out. So, we got to keep monitoring this and see where it goes. We got to continue because I think the people of Guyana deserve answers.
Yeah, so just let's touch a little bit on the business environment, though. We did talk a lot about the 200 taxes, licensing fees that were imposed on the Guyanese people. But what can you tell the viewers, just very briefly, what is the overall plans that the PPPC has for the business environment? Because you did talk a lot about the private sector and how they're spending and how the control of revenue by the private sector lends to the success of our Guyanese economy.
But that's a known fact. I mean, that's economics 101. But I just want to say that government working with the private sector, is something that is a known fact throughout any successful society, right? I'm saying to you that what this government has done is tax the blood out of the country. Every time you hear the GRA or the Ministry of Finance say, we break in so much more money in taxes, it means that the private sector and households are poorer by that amount. Where are they collecting the money from?
So what is the PPPC?
We are reversing all of those burdensome measures. It is a commitment from the leadership of the party and in our manifesto that those 200 plus taxes and wages and fees increase, all will replay. But I want to say this to you, right? Although we're repealing them, right, we got to make sure that We put other measures in place. That will only take us back to 2015 status quo. We have to make sure that we put things in place to build the country forward. We got to really 4.5 years was a period of regressiveness when it comes to tax. So what these guys have done literally is take the value-added tax legislation. You had a lot of zero-rated items in there, meaning you pay zero tax on them. They moved them over to the standard rated where you pay 14%. Right? So what they've done is created this value-added tax now is more like a consumption tax. Every time you consume something, you have to pay a tax on it. Yeah, so that's what's
that's more money out of our pockets.
That's not all too. It's like you have a cascading effect. It's like you're taxing a tax.
Yeah.
So if you pay a PAY and you collect your little money, you go to the shop, you get another tax. You're taxing tax to some extent. It don't make sense. Don't make economic sense.
Yeah. So I once again urge your viewers to take a look at the PPPC's manifesto and really understand why it's so important that you vote for the People's Progressive Party Civic come March 2nd. There are a lot of things that are happening in our country. We do want to ensure that we get our country back on the path to progress. We have a lot of work to do. After March 2nd, Deodat, he's a national candidate on the list. I'm hoping that he'll play a key role in the next People's Progressive Party Civic government. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you,
I do also want to encourage your viewers to ensure you pick up a copy of the Mirror. You'll be able to read these issues and a lot of other issues from the party and the party's view. So with that, thank you for viewing, and I'll see you guys next week.